If you're already a Splunk customer, then you know that all data is security relevant data. The more data I have during my investigations, the better my ability is as an analyst or an incident handler to do my job effectively and in a timely fashion. If you're working in security, whether it be a full-fledged SOC or just using Splunk for threat hunting, whatever the case may be, I'm sure I need to spend next to no time evangelizing the message of having your data in a bunch of different tools and not having the ability to correlate said data from all of those different tools truly hurts my soul and makes our jobs really difficult, right? So in terms of top value adds for the suite of security tools we're using, if you have Tenable, then you know that it brings a ton of valuable data into our security investigations. Host vulnerability data, asset-related data, configurations, unpatched components, etc., etc. Tenable data in Splunk is kind of a no-brainer. We've worked together with the folks at Tenable to create an integration that combines Tenable's cyber exposure insights and Splunk's correlation capabilities. So we have all of that beautiful data in one place, and it makes our lives as analysts a lot easier. That's what we're going to be looking at today, the Tenable app and the power of having that data in Splunk, what it affords you, and hopefully the value add will speak for itself. Now, we've already got a demo instance up and running with the data that you need to walk through and show the integration in action, but just to provide you some background so you can see the ease of GDI with this integration. To install, just hit splunkbase.com, search Tenable to find both the Tenable add-on and the Tenable app. The add-on allows for getting data in, and the app provides all the visualizations and dashboards to view that data. As we mentioned earlier, we already have the inputs configured for our demo instance, as you can see on the page, but just to illustrate in case you're starting from scratch, this is where you would start that data onboarding process. And there is an excellent, I think it's like 89-page step-by-step integration guide on Tenable's website that details the workflow in case you're interested in more information. It pretty much contains everything you need to know about GDI process with Splunk. It's worth mentioning that all of the Tenable source types are structured for vulnerabilities as well as assets, and the fields are mapped to a normalized standard. So whether you're in the app or writing custom SPL to search the data, it's normalized and it's easy to search. So let's navigate to search and take a look at that data. Like all things Splunk, you don't have to work within the confines of a specific app to search and view the data. So if I wanted to pull back vulnerability data from our .io source that was marked as critical and maybe active within the past 24 hours, something that is in a state of open and not closed within Tenable, then all I have to do is write some pretty simple SPL to search for that data. And that's what we're looking at on the screen. Before we jump into the Tenable app for Splunk, I'd like to answer the important question. You may be wondering, why would I use Splunk for this if all of this data is already in Tenable? And the answer is, why bring any data into Splunk? Because it gives us the ability to cross-correlate with other security relevant data sets. So host-based analysis data, user traffic patterns, related account information, and so on and so forth. And that's the kind of data that helps contextualize security events and hopefully remediate them. So vulnerability data as well as other insights that Tenable data can supply is really crucial for contextualizing our investigations. I may not start in Tenable for my investigation, but having that data as a readily available resource is invaluable. Let's look at that in practice, starting with enterprise security. Obviously, you don't need ES to leverage Tenable data. I just want to show you that this is how this data aids you in the incident response process without actually starting in Tenable or with vulnerability data. So if I'm in ES and I'm working a notable event that looks particularly nasty, one of the first things I'm going to want to do is get the latest scan data for that host. So it may be a situation where a host is only scanned every 60, 90, 180 days. And if I'm working a critical notable event, then I certainly would want the latest scan information for that host. So looking at all of the actions that we have available to us in ES in terms of adaptive response, You can see I can scan the machine, I can get a vulnerability summary, I can request a new scan in case this host hasn't been scanned, I can launch remediation scans. These actions can either be run by myself manually or run automatically. Say, for example, if the alert is critical or if it, is of a certain severity where this is an action you're going to want to take. So by the time I start investigating this alert, I've got a lot of the contextual information I need for my investigation without having to log into Tenable. Aside from that, you can create risk-based notables based on the current status of the asset or host. So you may not want to take follow-on actions in Tenable per se. You might not want to follow up with a remediation scan, but that's information you would want up front in a risk-based role, or at a minimum, you may want these alerts in Tenable to serve as risk modifiers in RBA. So there's a lot you can do within ES in terms of our Tenable data, but those are just some examples. So let's take a look inside the Tenable app and see more of this data in action. The Tenable app for Splunk provides pre-built dashboards and various reports that provide easily digestible summary data based on Tenable information sources. These dashboards can be made ad hoc and easily changed by editing the corresponding lookup table. If we click Save Searches, we'll get a list of all the searches responsible for populating the pre-built dashboards. So if you want to make modification to any of the dashboards, you have the ability to do that by viewing and editing the lookup tables shown here. We're not going to be going through all of the saved searches, obviously, but I just wanted to scroll and give you an idea of the list so that you can see the robustness of this app. Now, let's talk about dashboards. As we can see, we got a dashboard that's going to show us our vulnerability data within Tenable. So basically, high-level overview of what's happening on our host, who's vulnerable, what's being fixed, and so on and so forth. We also have a series of dashboards related to NNM, which is Nessus Network Monitoring. If you're in incident response or have done any security-related investigations before, then you already know that this is incredibly valuable data to have, networking monitoring data. Again, for time's sake, not going to go through all of these dashboards, but let's take a look at our vulnerability data dashboard and we'll go from there. This dashboard, it's pretty intuitive. We can see our top talkers, what vulnerabilities we can see in our environment today, what's active, what's been fixed. And if I want to pivot off of a certain severity within Tenable, I can do that. Maybe I only have cycles to look at criticals or highs. Maybe I want to look at weeks worth of data. Maybe I just want to look over the past 24 hours. We have the ability to massage the data in Splunk to meet whatever the needs are of our investigation. Two big ideas come to mind in terms of why I need this data for my investigation, and more specifically, why I would want to see this in Splunk, regardless of what the impetus is for why I'm looking at this data. Number one, if I have a notable event or some process in place that tells me, hey, you just got a scan result that said we ate bad.exe on host XYZ, the first thing that I'm going to think is, if Tenable finds a malicious binary on a host, even if it was remediated, even if it was deleted, we're already halfway through the kill chain stage. I need to know how we got there. How did the user get this on their machine? Did they actually execute it? If so, are we seeing command and control? What was the initial infection vector? And so on and so forth. That alert or the result that I'm seeing in Tenable, that's just a small sliver of a much larger pie, and I need to run the course of my entire investigation on that host and look at all the host logs, traffic data, PCAP, email, access logs, etc. to figure out what happened. So that's number one. Number two, and this is the dashboard we're about to look at, but if you've ever played bots, asset investigatory dashboards are your best friends. If I had a notable event that was seemingly unrelated, I could, search across Tenable data. It is 100% worth the effort to see if there's any sort of corresponding network data. So if I open an investigation on some weird notable event I saw, all I need is that IP or that host name or that asset tag, and I can see what related events we have for that host in Tenable. And depending on what I find, it could serve as invaluable information. So we're going to end on that, but just to reiterate, as we know, all data is security relevant, and the more I have in order to contextualize my investigations, the better. But I got to say, in terms of value adds, host network data from Tenable is top of my priority list, and hopefully we illustrated that today.